Hello, and welcome to our current event applied video project for Management 3000, Principles of Management with Dr. Pomorski. My name is Bengston, and I will be starting off our presentation entitled Workforce Changes in Response to COVID-19. You will hear from the rest of my group members listed here as we progress through the presentation. First, a quick introduction to our presentation. We have our class-related concept, which is performance-based rewards in the affluence gap, which is found in Chapter 10 of our class content. The featured companies we'll be talking about are Disney and Walmart. Well, the first section will be Disney's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, followed with other amusement park companies' responses to the COVID-19 pandemic, and then we'll contrast it with Walmart's very generous response to the COVID-19 pandemic and follow it up with a summary and a reference list. All right, so first, we begin with Disney's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, presented by myself, Bengston. First, a brief word on our class concept, performance-based reward systems in the affluence gap. We have a basic definition of reward systems pulled from our course material, which is that reward systems are formal and informal mechanisms or procedures by which employee performance is defined, evaluated, and rewarded. And we'll be focusing mostly on the rewarded part of that definition. The hope or goal with reward systems is that your contribution to the success of the company or the work that you do is reflected in your compensation, whether that be a wage rate or a salary that you earn, or added incentives such as benefits, dividends, or vacation times, or things like that. Of course, employees hope that they are compensated to the degree with which they feel they deserve, but that unfortunately doesn't always happen. The affluence gap is defined as excessive earnings gap between typical executive pay and typical employee pay, which we see in the U.S., which has been as high or higher than a 1,000 to 1 ratio. We will discuss these concepts in context throughout our presentation. All right, our highlight of Disney's workforce cut due to the COVID-19 pandemic. When Disney World and Disneyland closed at the start of the pandemic in early March of 2020, they made the decision to furlough over 100,000 operation-level employees throughout the company. These employees, in the grand scheme of the Disney workforce, are the lower-level employees and managers receiving the wage rate pay with the lowest incentives in relation to the performance. For the company, these furloughed employees include 70,000 performers, pictured at the left, that you see in parks, at restaurants and parades, etc., as well as Disney hotel staff and regular operations workers. In announcing this furlough, Disney announced that employees would remain Disney employees throughout the furlough, still receive health insurance, and receive 5 weeks of full pay, which ended April 18th of 2020. No other pay was received throughout this furlough. In contrast with the now unstable financial position of so many Disney's employees, high-level executives were still paid their usual earnings. They were still expected to pay out usual bonuses and dividends to executives, which has totaled $1.5 billion in the past. Criticizers were obviously quick to question this and argue that this payout of bonuses and dividends would be the equivalent to about 3 months of pay for the furloughed employees if they were to get it. Criticizers also pointed out that the shareholders receiving the majority of the dividends held a significant amount of shares, and they were also executives receiving plenty of pay during this time. In response to the criticism, former CEO Bob Iger and current CEO Bob Chapek said that they would take large pay cuts in solidarity with those that had lost their pay, which amounted to about $3 million in total, but once again, criticizers were quick to point out that expected bonuses would more than make up for their pay cuts. And of course, incentive reward systems are also in play here, contributing to the ever-growing salaries of the top-level executives at Disney. As for Disney's reopening and rehiring plan, Disney World has reopened the Magic Kingdom and Animal Kingdom parks as of July 11, 2020, followed closely by Epcot and Hollywood Studios on July 15th with safety, health concerns, and social distancing measures in mind, the latter of which has been a source of even more criticism. Some new practices include no parades, nighttime spectaculars, or the like that usually draw large crowds. Employees cannot assist you in using your personal phone to take your picture, and there's a new ban on eating and drinking while walking around, as it requires you to not be wearing a mask, which is required in all parks at all times. The reopening recalled all full-time attraction workers and custodial workers back to work to help in running the parks, as well as a high number of part-time union workers. Unfortunately, no seasonal workers or Disney College program students will be returning back to Disney anytime soon, as the parks are still running way below their usual capacity and will take a long time to return to normal operations. Another important related note is that the recall of workers does not include international workers, who most notably staff Epcot's World Showcase, pictured at the right. Disney has decided that they're reopening in their reopening that these areas, as well as other positions typically filled by international workers, are being staffed with domestic workers. Additionally, Disney has actually created a new queue monitoring position in which staff are placed at each attraction to enforce social distancing and safety precautions within the lines of the attraction. As this pandemic progresses, we will definitely be seeing more from Disney as they either move forward with a reopening or shut down entirely for a second time. Hopefully, in either case, Disney employees and their respective pay will be taken into account as decisions are made. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chau, and the next part of the presentation will be observing how other amusement park companies are responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, Universal Studios saw a 31.9% decline in its revenue. However, Universal parent company Comcast Corporation is pledging $500 million to help its employees recoup from the pandemic. Most full-time employees receive a pay cut of 20%, while a small group of employees will be able to maintain their pay without any cuts, as they will be required to continue working full-time. The pay cuts apply to employees ranging from the corporate level in salary pay to those who are paid hourly. Universal Studios has no intention of reducing employees' benefits and are still allowing employees to take paid time off and vacation days. As for part-time employees, all will be temporarily laid off. However, part-time employees who were enrolled in the benefits plan will be entitled to their rewards. Universal Studios will be offering severance pay to laid-off workers, subsidized health benefits, as well as professional re-employment assistance for those who wish to return to the workforce once the circumstances have improved. Unlike Disney, who have awarded its executive a hefty amount of bonuses, Universal Studios have made the decision to reduce the pay of employees across its entire workforce. In planning its reopening, Universal Studios is taking various cautious measures, such as reduced capacity for guests, requirements for social distancing, and maintenance of individual hygiene. Similar to other amusement park companies, Six Flags revenue have also seen a decrease of about 20%. Six Flags have decided against laying off workers and instead chose to reduce the salary of executive officers and full-time salary worker by 25%. For full-time hourly employees, their hours were reduced by 25%. In doing so, Six Flags had hoped to maintain a group of experienced workers when they reopened rather than having to hire and train new workers, which is rather different from Disney's decision to lay off nearly half of its workforce. However, despite these statements, as Six Flags approaches its reopening date, some locations are looking to hire new employees for a variety of positions. They're also offering paid training, retail discount, as well as other benefits for those who wish to join. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, SeaWorld had announced that it would close all of its locations around the U.S. In the process of planning for long-term survival in the industry, SeaWorld has made the decision to temporarily lay off about 90% of its employees, including those at the corporate level, which is similar to what Universal had done. While SeaWorld offered to cover the unemployment benefits for those who were laid off, these workers will receive no pay, whereas other companies are still providing some form of compensation while these workers find alternatives.
Hi, my name is Anna Vo, and I will be speaking about Walmart's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Unlike Disney's response, along with other amusement parks, Walmart's actions were a bit more generous. During these uncertain times, Walmart's frontline associates have contributed a lot of energy and time across stores worldwide. Therefore, Walmart distributed performance-based rewards for their hard work. Full-time hourly associates have received a $300 bonus, while part-time associates have received a $150 bonus. Drivers, assistant managers, and managers have received bonuses as well. Workers have received their specified bonuses 3 times already, and on top of that, Walmart has decided to close all stores this Thanksgiving because the CEO stated that their workers deserved to spend time with their families on this holiday. Then, working hours will resume the following day on Black Friday, one of Walmart's most busiest days of the year. In a statement from John Furner, the president and CEO of Walmart, he says, "Our associates have been working at an incredible pace. They've solved problems and they've set an amazing example for others. To further appreciate their incredible work, we are pleased to share another special cash bonus this summer." In the following diagram, aside from the regular incentives that associates usually receive, Walmart paid 3 special cash bonuses on April 2nd, June 25th, and this upcoming August 20th, resulting in $1.1 billion in total special bonuses. From ensuring customers have a safe, pleasant shopping experience, to constantly delivering and restocking essential products and maintaining a sanitary environment, these rewards reflect their workers' persistent contributions. During this pandemic, industries will either benefit or hinder. For example, Walmart has been successful because there's a high demand for essential products, whereas Disney Parks, Universal Studios, Six Flags, and SeaWorld are compromised because their recreational services are low in demand due to pandemic guidelines such as social distancing and quarantining. In response to Walmart's growing consumer demand, they have hired an additional 150,000 employees to fill roles and promote efficiency throughout the stores. Therefore, contrasting from the companies that Ali and Chau discuss, Walmart has the means to distribute such rewards. Ever since the pandemic began, their revenue has increased by $10.7 billion, sales have increased by 10%, and online buying grew 74% due to more consumers staying at home. With Walmart generating so much revenue, an influence gap has always existed where the CEO to worker pay gap is 1,076 to 1, a ratio higher than the 1,000 to 1 that Ali mentioned earlier. Thank you.
My name is Parker Landua, and I'll be presenting the summary of the workforce changes that we saw due to COVID-19. To begin, we kind of looked at 2 major themes for the COVID-19 pandemic. First being the performance-based reward systems. Performance-based reward systems are when employees are compensated for their individual contribution to that company. We looked at 2 different sides of this. First being companies such as Disney, Universal, Six Flags, and SeaWorld. During the pandemic, these companies saw a major loss in profits as well as a major loss in business. Their lower level employees were left without any work to really be doing because there was no business coming in. Due to this, these employees were not compensated for their lack of contribution. However, Walmart, which was providing an essential business during this pandemic, saw their profits grow as well as an increase in business with customers coming in looking for stuff to help them get through this pandemic. These everyday employees were given a greater workload because of this influx of business. Therefore, they were having to work a little bit harder. With that being said, management saw it necessary to reward their employees for the greater contribution that they were giving to the company. And Walmart did this by giving their employees days off and cash bonuses for the hard work that they did due to the pandemic. The other theme that we saw was the affluence gap. The affluence gap is the typical earnings gap between the higher up executives and everyday employees. Typically, higher level executives are paid a greater salary than the everyday employees. This is because the higher level executives are really hard to replace and are very important to the company. They're doing really big picture stuff as opposed to the everyday employees who do basic everyday tasks. The everyday employees are really easy to replace and are therefore not as valuable to the company as those higher level executives are. The company that we saw this theme evident in was SeaWorld. During the pandemic, SeaWorld furloughed 90% of its employees. However, they were still paying the higher level executives their usual earnings. The affluence gap is evident here because these higher level executives will be the ones who are going to be saving the company during this tough time. However, these lower level employees are really not doing much to contribute at all to the company. Number one, because of the lack of business, and number two, the higher level executives are really very valuable to this company because they're going to be the ones that are having to make a plan for how to get out of this horrible situation that's happened. They are going to be the ones that are going to get the company back on a track to success, as opposed to the everyday employees who are just going to be working with the customers every day. Right here, the executive work is very vital to the success of SeaWorld, as opposed to the everyday employees. In a final recap, we kind of saw that every industry has been affected differently due to the COVID-19 pandemic. With that being said, every management for those industries has had to come up with a different managerial strategy in order to keep that company running successfully, or at least save them from going under. Like I said, there was kind of two industries that we looked at. The first being the amusement park industry that wasn't really providing an essential service to society. Therefore, it was seeing a major loss in profits and has had to find ways to kind of stay afloat. Some strategies that management put in order to keep the company running was pay cuts, layoffs, and furloughs in order to kind of get the cash together and save it while there was no cash really being put back into that business. On the other side, however, we looked at the grocery store industry that really was providing essential service during this crazy time. And with that being said, they saw a major increase in profits as well as business. However, their employees had to deal with a greater workload. Management saw that it was necessary to reward these employees for the extra contribution that they were doing for the company, and these managers rewarded those employees with bonuses, days off, raises, as well as other things in order to distribute the rewards that they got from increasing that company's profits. And Walmart was kind of the example that we saw that was providing the essential service. However, on the other side, companies such as Disney World, Universal, and SeaWorld, as well as Six Flags, were kind of not providing essential service for society. So that was kind of just what we saw. We saw two major themes in the workforce that was changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and how these different managements put in different strategies to help respond